I don't think anyone in this room genuinely believes that the mandatory digital ID is about illegal working, which begs the question, what is it really about?
Hello everybody and Grand Day Rising. Today I want to talk about the debate in Parliament that's coming on the 8th of December about digital ID. Now, the BigBrotherWatch wrote out the middle of last week to those of us who subscribe to their newsletter with an email template that we could fill in and request our MP to attend and represent us. So I won't read everything I said. The template you can amend and tweak and add your own views, but basically the points that are covered are that there's almost 3 million who've signed the petition against digital ID, which is the 4th largest parliamentary petition recorded, and the scale of the response reflects the unpopular nature of the scheme. And then we can talk about the concerns about any mandatory digital ID scheme in terms of privacy and upending our relationship with the state and making us targets for hacking and ID theft and other crimes by foreign enemies and criminals. In the past year, for example, there's been breaches of the legal aid database, and Afghans, for example, who relocated to the UK have resulted in having their information leaked, which has put them at risk. And the government's one login system is also reported to be susceptible to impersonation, and indeed it hasn't even worked very well. In these cases I've mentioned before where directors needed to register with the one login system and some of them were not able to, and the system locked them out. Out of the 7+ million company directors, only 1.5 million have taken part in the exercise so far, which has led certain government departments into a state of panic. And the importance of the government hearing our concerns at the debate. Also, how the government initially pitched the scheme as a means to check work eligibility, but since then the goalposts have changed, and you can put examples in there, and BigBrotherWatch do provide a few examples. Then we can say that there's no guarantee that this government or a future one would not make digital ID a requirement to access a range of public and private services that could affect everybody, all our lives. And about how those of us who are not maybe as adept at doing things digitally or who do not want to could be penalised for it, and that's not right because it creates a divided society, and the system would last far beyond this government, meaning that we risk building the mass surveillance infrastructure that they have in China and other countries which have a less rights respecting administration. Another point that I mentioned was the sprawling ID system representing an unprecedented threat to our privacy. And in order to be effective, a mandatory digital ID scheme would need to gather and store information about us on a huge scale. So every time an individual uses a digital ID, that use may be recorded by government databases, which allows the vast amount of information to be amassed, searched and sorted to offer insights through data analysis and profiling. We shouldn't be forced to have our lives open to the state in such a way just to help it administer itself. Then I talked about the introduction of a mandatory digital ID scheme, fundamentally changing the relationship between the population and the state, which shifts power away from the individuals and towards the government and other bureaucracies, and also big business. Currently we have a system where we can prove our identity as and when we need to with a variety of methods, such as driver licence, passport, maybe a bus pass, that sort of thing, a proof of address from a bill or maybe a bank statement, and these have always been perfectly acceptable and straightforward. Whereas a mandatory ID scheme would completely turn this on its head. I ended my email to my MP with a note to say that a mandatory digital ID scheme is very unlikely to solve the problems its proponents claim it will. And I'm sure we all can agree on that. This is a cross-party disagreement that we have with the government. It's not limited to left or centre or far right, but everybody has concerns regardless of who they support, if anybody. So the government said, of course, that the scheme was there to crack down on illegal hiring practices, for example, and there's been a lot of discussion around that and the subject of digital ID for immigration enforcement. But the government hasn't presented a convincing argument that this scheme will be used for that. And more there's been other reasons for wanting to bring it in which have nothing to do with what it was initially brought forward for. It will inevitably cost the government billions of pounds, and I did say here, another shake of the magic money tree. And whatever happened to the £22 billion black hole ? So this will persuade criminals who already break employment and immigration law to change their behaviour, to just adapt to the new system. And it will be the law-abiding people who suffer the effects of digital ID through privacy intrusions and security risks, and that is simply not acceptable. So I asked my MP to stand in defence of civil liberties, attend the 8th of December debate, and let the government know about the dangers associated with a mandatory digital ID scheme. So I will put the link in the description to this video for the BigBrotherWatch form, so you can go away and write to your own MP and ask them to attend the debate on the 8th of December on your behalf. So this was the reply I received fairly quickly from my MP for East Thanet, Polly Billington. We can't criticise her for that because she did email me very quickly, although she is a proponent of the mandatory digital ID, unfortunately. it goes, "Dear Catherine, thank you for writing to me about the government's plan for digital ID. The thinking behind the introduction of digital ID is to improve the function of public services and the ability of people to access the things they need from the state." That, of course, is a bit gaslighty, because that's not the reason we were given initially. It was to crack down on illegal working. You see how things have changed. "I'm sure I'm not alone in being persistently frustrated by the clunky and bureaucratic nature of accessing a GP appointment or having to produce old energy bills to prove my identity, and believe a digital ID would solve a lot of these everyday frustrations, saving both the government and members of the public time and money." Now, where we are in East Thanet, we have a system called Anima, and it is one of these online forms that you need to fill in to request a GP appointment. And there isn't really a paper version, which is wrong. And Dan and I received an email last week to say that they're under such strain that now appointments are 4 to 6 weeks if you want something that's non-urgent. So I don't see how a digital ID system is going to improve things, do you? They say they haven't been given any extra money to extend the hours to 6 p.m. I think initially it was till 3 to 4 p.m. each day, but now they're expected to keep the form open every day until 6, and they have no extra resources for more staff or anything of that nature. So already we can see things are not working out too well. I therefore believe that digital ID would put more power and control in the hands of people, from booking appointments or applying for benefits online to providing your age or opening bank accounts. However, initially the government has proposed that digital ID be used for right to work checks only. Now you see, anyway, even though she said that, which kind of echoes the original discussion, that intending to extend it out. So there's some shooting of oneself in the foot here. Meaning by the end of this Parliament, employers will be required to conduct digital right to work checks using the new digital ID. In the UK, you already need proof of ID to work legally, and so the focus of this policy is to streamline and digitise the form of ID that will be required. People don't want it. Unfortunately, we do know that sometimes people fake identification documents, but they can online anyway. Let's be reasonable. Let's be honest about this. Let's be realistic. If you're a cyber criminal, you'll fake your online ID anyway. We know people share national insurance numbers in order to work in the UK too. There is no silver bullet to solve illegal working, but it is clear that criminals are claiming the UK labour market is easy to cheat when compared to European countries where digital IDs are commonplace, as they seek to profit from offering dangerous and illegal journeys to the UK. But I mean, the systems in Europe and elsewhere are different from ours. The one they want to bring in here is so widespread and akin to the CBDC that they have in China, and is one of facial recognition cameras and who knows what else as well. I don't see how any of the things they talk about are going to be cleared up with a digital ID. Criminals are very sophisticated, and the more complex the web, the more complex the crimes usually follows. The government has considered evidence from Estonia, where there's a high level of control retained by individual citizens over what part of the digital ID can be seen by which services. Hang on though, Estonia has now had 2 massive data breaches, so it's not a good example to use. Estonia's system reportedly saves each citizen hours every month by streamlining unnecessary bureaucracy, and the move to becoming a digital society has saved 1 to 2% of GDP for the country, reducing the burden on taxpayers. I'll believe that when I see it, but 1 to 2% of GDP is very little in the bigger scheme of things. In terms of concerns about data security and centralised data storage, I agree that ensuring the government follows the highest data security standards is essential. So we at least agree on something. The government has said privacy will be put first at every step, using encryption, authentication and decentralising data storage. There's even evidence that digital ID credentials could reduce identity theft risks by limiting unnecessary exposure of personal details. Unlike physical IDs, if a digital ID is lost or stolen, it can be quickly revoked, updated and reissued. It is vital that digital ID is inclusive. That is why the government is launching a public consultation to work closely with employers, trade unions, civil society groups and other stakeholders to co-design the programme. But what part of it don't understand, not everybody can use digital ID. Not everybody wants to use it. We need choice. There's areas of the country that have almost no network whatsoever. So it's pie in the sky. Only after that process has concluded will new legislation be brought forward, and I'll be sure to scrutinise the legislation carefully, so you say, with colleagues and debate it in the House of Commons to ensure I'm happy that the concerns people have raised have been adequately addressed. And I'm sure there are a lot of us, even in Thanet, who are not happy at all. I've spoken to enough of them. Finally, what I would say is that despite what opponents of digital identity might imply, the vast majority of citizens already use digital identity extensively in their daily lives. Modern passports contain a digital identity chip. Most people register for government services using online digital accounts, and private digital identities are everywhere, from Facebook to supermarket loyalty cards to video game profiles and email accounts. But it's not the same thing at all. It's very different indeed. And it's a bit gaslighting, because not everybody does use social media. I have more than one friend, several friends in fact, and relatives who don't use social media or QR codes, I don't, or anything online. And that is the honest truth. Therefore, I do not accept the argument that the introduction of an efficient, uniform national scheme would be the fundamental change some are claiming. Such schemes are already commonplace across Europe. Again, gaslighting. Whilst we may not agree on this, thank you once again for writing to me. Please don't hesitate to get back in touch if you'd like to raise any other issues with me. So there we go, that's that. Now, last Tuesday, Silkie, Carlo of BigBrotherWatch was invited by the Home Affairs Committee to go and talk in evidence about digital ID. And I will put a link to that video again in the description to this video. I wrote back to Polly Billington, of course, because I had some more things to say, and here we go. Dear Polly, thank you for your email in response to mine. Whilst it is unfortunate that we don't agree on this issue, we do at least agree on some of the concerns. On Tuesday of this week, Silkie Carlo of BigBrotherWatch was called to Parliament to give evidence about digital ID. Upon speaking to the Home Affairs Committee, she didn't hold back in warning them about the serious risks and implications that a sprawling digital ID system poses to all of our freedoms. In case you're not aware of this or what transpired, I will link the video below, and I linked the video in my email for Polly Billington to see. Addressing the elephant in the room, Silkie Carlo clearly informs the committee that the majority of the British public have little appetite for any widespread or mandatory digital ID, and one of the reasons for this is that the government has consistently moved the goalposts, which the public see as a potential overreach and loss of our human rights, as well as creating social division under various articles of the Human Rights Act 1998, for example. The current online petition is the fourth largest one ever in the UK and would be even larger were it not for the fact that many who oppose digital ID refuse to sign the petition, as they regard it as a data gathering exercise and do not trust the government. Furthermore, there is also a sizable percentage of the population who have neither broadband nor smartphone nor other digital device for whatever reason. I have had conversations with many people up and down the country, most of whom have broached the subject, not I, who have voiced their grave concerns about digital ID and would categorically say no to any such scheme on a wider scale. May I respectfully point out that any proposed scheme is reliant on the consent of the British people, and thus the right to comply with or reject any scheme lies individually with the people. Similarly, the people, whether individually or collectively, have the right to withdraw any consent at any time, which must be honoured, and in any case without penalty. Ministers and MPs are elected to serve and represent the interests of the people, and if, for example, a digital ID scheme is implemented against the will of the people, then, particularly in the current climate, things may not end particularly well for Labour and will undoubtedly benefit the likes of Reform UK. Best regards, Catherine Evans. And that is that. Anyway, what's your experiences? Let me know what you think. Let me hear your views. It's interesting, I met another light worker at the rally last Saturday against digital ID, and we had a really good conversation. We marched together and she was saying that we shouldn't even say digital ID because that gives power to it. It's the whole thing with manifestation. So maybe in future we should just call it the scheme or it. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, and then maybe please share and subscribe if you haven't already, and like what I do. I do stuff that's more upbeat sometimes, quite often really. Ding the notification bell, and I'll see you again soon for the next one. Until then, bye for now.